Hello, this is Charles Brewer, President of the Civil War Study Group here at Lake of the Woods, Virginia. Welcome to the recording of our program on August 23rd, 2025. Our speaker today is Gene Schmiel. As I mentioned, he has been with us before. I think it was March of last year. Gene is a retired U.S. Department of State Foreign Service officer who also was an assistant professor of history at St. Francis University, which is in Pennsylvania. Where in Pennsylvania?
Loretto.
Population
1,100.
In Loretto, population of 1,100. Big place. But anyway, he holds a PhD degree in history from the Ohio State University. Gene has written over 20 books about the Civil War. His first, Citizen General, Jacob Dolson Cox and the Civil War Era, was published in 2014 by Ohio University Press. A companion book, My Dearest Lilla, Civil War Letters Home by General Jacob D. Cox, was published in late 2023 by the University of Tennessee Press. He co-authored with Frank Simeon Jr. the first and only biography of General Irwin McDowell, titled Searching for Irwin McDowell, the Civil War's Forgotten General, which is published in 2023 by Savas Beatty, which, as many of you may know, you may have many of their books. They tend to specialize in the Civil War issues. But at any rate, Gene is a native Ohioan, as you can imagine, having gone to school there, and he lives in Gainesville, Virginia, with his wife on the border of the Manassas battlefields. So he probably goes to sleep with the ghosts every night. But anyway, enough about that. Let me turn it over to Gene.
Thank you. Glad to be back. I'm moving over here so that I can see as well as you do. Civil War, Statuary Hall. Who should be memorialized in the U.S. Capitol? One of the wonderful things about Jeff Bezos, and there are some wonderful things, there's some terrible things too, is I self-published this book in 2020. I have amended it 4 times because since 2020 there have been several changes in Statuary Hall. And every time there was a change, I did a new version, which was easy to do on the Amazon website. So let's take a look. Some of you watched the inauguration of President Trump, and you may have noticed that this is what wives give to husbands' presents on Christmas. Your own laser pointer. All right, here's the inauguration. Here's the presidents, ingoing, outgoing. Here's a fellow named Lincoln. Here's a fellow named Grant. And here's a fellow named Harry Truman over here in the Capitol building. Now, Harry Truman is the only one that's in Statuary Hall. Lincoln and Grant are not, for a variety of reasons. But it's interesting that this brought home to people about what's the nature of statuary on Capitol Hill. Okay, Statuary Hall was the United States House of Representatives until 1853. In the early 1840s, 1850s, there was a belief that they had to create a whole new expansion because the country was getting larger, the hall was too small, and so the country, and here's a Samuel Morse, who not only did a variety of scientific things, but also was a wonderful painter, a painting of the house building. Anyway, so in the 1850s, there was the idea of, here was the old Congress, House and Senate, and decided to build a whole new, big building, the new House and the new Senate over here, and finally finish the Capitol and also put the Statue of Freedom on top. So this was going on in the 1850s, in the 1860s, and so and this was part of the process of the creation of Statuary Hall. Because there was a debate, what are we going to do with it? Here's this wonderful building, this wonderful section of the building, but, well, Secretary of War in the early 1850s under Franklin Pierce was a fellow named Jefferson Davis. Anyone? You've all heard. And the War Department was in charge of construction. And so which included also decisions on who's going to be on top of the Capitol building. So one of the discussions was, here's were the three designs for the figure on top of the Capitol. The one in the middle, Jefferson Davis did not like, because it included the cap of the slave cap, symbol of the French Revolution, Marie, and the liberation of slaves. And believe it or not, Jefferson Davis did not think that was a good idea. So this will be an original design, second design, and this is the final design. This is the one that's actually up on top of the Capitol. And believe it or not, it's like everything else in the Congress, it's a compromise. It's a Statue of Freedom, it's got revolution, it's got peace, it's got cloaks, it's got weapons, it's got shields, it's got, oh, and it's got water. Thank you very much. So, but that's a design. It was emplaced on top of the Capitol in 1863. So the Statue of Freedom is a creature of the Civil War. So one of the first ideas while it was being built was use that old chamber as a museum. And that's the figure, the model for freedom, which is still on display in a variety of places in Capitol Hill. It's about, I'd say about 18, 20 feet high. Used to be right next to the house, the trains that went to the buildings, but I don't know where it is right now. It was on exhibit there. Okay, early in the Civil War, Justin Morrill, a congressman from Vermont, he took the lead. He said, here's an idea about what we should do with it. By the way, Justin Morrill, the father of the Land Grant Colleges Act, Ohio State, Penn State, dozens and dozens of universities, state universities. Justin Morrill is the person we have to, those of you who went into any of those, say your thanks to Justin Morrill. Anyway, he said, the old House of Representatives, empty and deserted, is an unappropriated waste and a conspicuous nuisance. So in 1864, he put forth a resolution in which each state would have autonomy to designate 2 people to honor permanently in the Capitol building. So, reflecting the federal nature of the United States government. Federal government would have no control. Each state would have full control. That's an important concept to remember. And that would be something which we will talk about later. This is why some states used this to glorify what some have called the lost cause. By the way, Justin Morrill is not one of those people honored in Statuary Hall. He should be. Vermont honored the ever famous Jacob Collamer. And those who know Jacob Collamer, please raise your hand. Okay, we'll talk about him a bit later instead of Justin Morrill. Anyway, what's interesting is this legislation was going nowhere. It was having real trouble. Finally, a congressman from Pennsylvania, a great power in the House in 1864, saved it, wrote the final compromise, Thaddeus Stevens. The idea that Thaddeus Stevens was the one who saved this is interesting thing to remember too. You may recall Thaddeus Stevens was the most radical of radical Republicans, the most abolitionist, anti-slavery Republican in the House. Okay. The first statues were of Nathaniel Greene in 1870. I have Abraham Lincoln here, but Abraham Lincoln represents the United States. He is not one of the 2 representatives from Illinois. He is not. He represents the United States. So in my book, which is for sale over here for a mere $10, is that too subtle? Okay. I say that there are 2 representatives of the United States. 1, Abraham Lincoln. 2, the Statue of Freedom on top of the Capitol. Anyway, Nathaniel Greene. Any Rhode Islanders? Okay. The most recent statue was by Martha Hughes Cannon of Utah, 2024. Anyone Utah? No? Okay. Martha Hughes Cannon replaced Philo Farnsworth.
He's been on TV.
Now, I told this to my son, who's an engineer, and he said, oh yeah, Philo Farnsworth. Who knows Philo Farnsworth? What did he do?
He's been on TV.
He invented television, the opiate of the people.
What did she do?
And he was replaced by Martha Hughes Cannon, who was a suffragette, who was a very active in politics, and was one of the staunchest defenders of Mormonism. She was the fourth wife of somebody, Mr. Cannon. Each state has autonomy. See, that's who you. This is last year. Last year. Okay. Let's move on. Most of those emplaced in Catch-all by the states exemplify the American dream. They were self-made. Let's look at it. This is, I find, this is Father Damien, Hawaii, leper colonies. Norman Borlaug, Iowa. Who's Norman Borlaug? The father of the Green Revolution. Why India can feed 1.6 billion people. Norman Borlaug is more responsible for that than anybody. Will Rogers, Sacagawea, William Jennings Bryan, and poor old Philo Farnsworth, who's now, he's back in Utah at a museum somewhere there. But again, most people are not well known, but each state thinks they're well represented.
Will Rogers is.
I'm sorry?
Will Rogers.
Will Rogers, yes.
Yeah, from Oklahoma.
Okay, 40% of the 100 statues, again, 2 from each state, are related to the Civil War. So in the 19th century, the only Civil War figures in place were from the North. James Garfield from Ohio. Phil Kearny, someone here was asking about Phil Kearny, yes, from New Jersey, he's still there. There's lots of talk to replace it, but he's still there. James Shields of Illinois, Civil War general, among other things. James Shields was a senator from 3 different states. He's the only one who's ever had that distinction. Frank Blair Jr., Frank Blair from Missouri. Frank Blair at Blair House, downtown Washington, the Blair family. Frank Blair Jr. He was a Civil War general. At the same time, he was a member of Congress on the military committee. So he'd go back and vote more from funds for himself than he'd go back to the battlefield. You could do that in those days. And finally, Oliver Morton, who was the governor, wartime governor of Indiana. During the 19th century, there was a pattern, a new lost cause. During the 19th century, the losers wrote the history of the Civil War. This is a controversial statement, subject to argument. You hear this, well, the victors write the history. In the United States, that is not true. The losers wrote the history of the Civil War. The Lost Cause, the Daughters of the Confederacy, the William Dunning School professors in Columbia, they wrote the history of the Civil War. The myth of the Lost Cause. Am I here to create controversy? No, but the Lost Cause began in April 1865, in the days before the surrender at Appomattox Courthouse. There's a wonderful book written by Elizabeth Varyn, University of Virginia, Appomattox. Her preface says, Robert E. Lee did everything he could, beginning at Appomattox, to reconcile and bring the sections back together. Second paragraph, balderdash. He did nothing. At Appomattox, in his correspondence with Grant, he talked about restoration. That's the word he used. Restoring as much as possible of the old ways. You'll notice that Lee wore his dress uniform. his statue in Capitol, in Statuary Hall is in that same uniform. That's a symbolism we'll talk about. That's the linkage, very important. Reconstruction, American people slowly but surely came to accept the changed narrative that the war was not fought over slavery. The slavery played a very limited, if any, role. The fact that every single resolution by every state of secession said we're fighting for slavery is deemed irrelevant. Dixie's Daughters is a wonderful book here written by Karen Cox about the role of Southern women in rewriting history, influence on history books. And down here, Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. Supreme Court decision which made separate but equal constitutional. This sealed the narrative of what the Civil War was all about. Paving the way for the 20th century for Confederates to be emplaced. The first ones were, of course, the ever famous John Kenna of West Virginia. Anyone from West Virginia? I was going to say that, everybody know. Remember who John Kenna was? Okay. He was a very, very dominant political figure in West Virginia. At the age of 16, he joined the Confederate Army for a few months. So he's a Confederate soldier, just a kid, got out. Jabez Curry, by comparison, was in the Mexican War, in the Civil War, a slave owner, member of the House, staff aide to Joe Johnson, Joe Wheeler. After the war, he became one of the leading educators in the South. He made sure there was education for every person in the South, separate but equal. And he declared that education for black people should be limited to the trades. That's it. So he was honored in 1908, John Kenna in 1901. The first major Confederate figures to be honored were Robert E. Lee in 1909 and Zebulon Vance in 1916. The Lee statue was a subject, to say the least, a lot of controversy. Many, many people were very unhappy. Again, they didn't really know who John Kenna, or care who John Kenna was, or Jabez Curry, but Robert E. Lee, everybody knew that one. And again, here's the statue in that dress uniform. Eventually, the compromise was made that, one, Virginia had autonomy, therefore they could choose anyone they wanted to do. 25 years later, their second statue was emplaced, a fellow named George Washington. He came second. But they said, okay, there won't be a big ceremony. We won't have bands, or we won't have speeches. We'll just put up the statue. Okay. 1909. 1917, Uriah Rose, Arkansas. Rose was a political figure. He was a judge during the Civil War, and he enforced during and after the Civil War segregation and everything else related to that during Reconstruction in Arkansas. And James Paul Clark. I'm sorry, Rose was one of the founders of the American Bar Association. And James Paul Clark was, let's see, he was too young to fight in the Civil War, but he was very active in Reconstruction, enforcing segregation. So they are the two Arkansas people. And remember, both of them were replaced 2 years ago. Edmund Kirby Smith, Florida, 1922, very active Confederate general, and Joe Wheeler of Alabama, 1925. In 1926, Crawford Long of Georgia was emplaced. Crawford Long was a surgeon. He was a doctor. Very active in the Civil War. Each and every one of you and I must pay homage Crawford Long. Just as the people of India pay homage to Norman Borlaug for the Green Revolution, Crawford Long was the creator of anesthesia. Each and every one of us are. Thank you, Crawford Long. I'm that's quite serious. Hey, but he was a surgeon in the Confederate Army. He didn't want to fight it. Alexander Stephens, on the other hand, was the vice president of the Confederacy for Georgia, and Wade Hampton, who was a general in the Confederate forces. One of the best. I drove through Brandy Station up here on the way down here, and after Jeff Stewart died, Wade Hampton took over the cavalry. And he had no military background, really, but he became an excellent soldier and cavalryman. 1931, Mississippi put forth these two men. Now, you ever want to come and take a look? More than a few people walk by the Capitol and look at this statue and say, that's Jefferson Davis? You know, maybe Jefferson Davis when he was about 22. It really doesn't resemble the modern Jefferson. And James George. James George was an educator in Mississippi. He was one of the few people. He got arrested as a POW. He spent much of the war in Ohio, in a prisoner of war camp in Sandusky Bay, which is near where I was born. But he also was an educator after the Civil War, did everything he could to expand education, separate but equal. Now, there were some Copperheads honored. Everyone knows what a Copperhead is? A Northerner? Well, my home state of Ohio, in 1887, for reasons which nobody at the time remembered, honored William Allen. Who? It could have been Grant, it could have been Sherman, it could have been Sheridan. William Allen. William Allen was a Copperhead during the Civil War. He was a Northerner who supported secession, who did everything he could to disrupt the Northern war effort in the Ohio legislature. Is that the question?
Explain Copperheads.
Okay, Copperhead is the name, it was then given to Northerners who supported the Confederacy. Like a Copperhead steak. They were not popular, but they had freedom of speech. So William Allen, and then in 1937, the ever famous Julius Morton, right, from Nebraska, also an active. He was honored because he was the father of Arbor Day. Okay, neither one of them are there anymore, but he was an agriculturalist. Okay. Finally, in 1932, Charles Aycock, North Carolina. He was born in 1859, so he didn't do much in the Civil War other than survive. But he was the governor of North Carolina, the one who instituted the Wilmington riots, which led to his being elected governor, which led to extensive repression in North Carolina and segregation. So that's what he did. And then we have Edward White of Louisiana. Edward White, interesting story. Born in 1846 in Louisiana. His father was the governor, had been governor of Louisiana on a sugar plantation, which had slaves. He enlisted in the Confederate Army. He fought for 4 years, including as a guerrilla. He was taken prisoner of war. Got a law degree from Georgetown, off the road here. Joined the Ku Klux Klan, which was a springboard to successful political career, and as a judge. He was appointed to the Supreme Court by Grover Cleveland. He was one of the judges that voted in Plessy versus Ferguson. 7-1 majority. He later became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, 1910 to 1921, succeeded by William Howard Taft. He was in place in 1955, 1 year after Plessy versus Ferguson was reversed by Brown versus Board of Education. His emplacement was part of the resistance by Louisiana. That's what it said. This is Plessy versus Ferguson, it's Brown versus Board of Education. I just said that already, so. Sometimes I jump ahead, but these are those two decisions. Separate but equal is constitutional, separate but equal is unconstitutional. Reversed. 1996, 1954. Other Union political leaders who have been in place. Here's, of course, the James Collamer, whom I mentioned earlier. He was a senator from Vermont, very abolitionist, anti-slavery. John Ingalls of Kansas, newspaper editor. James Harlan of Iowa, politician. Francis Pierpont, who was the father of West Virginia. He's the one that led the way to create secession from secession, the creation of West Virginia. Zach Chandler from Michigan. Thomas King of California. Hannibal Hamlin from Maine. On the end there, I missed somebody. And Samuel Kirkwood of Iowa. Kirkwood, Chandler, King, and Hamlin on the bottom line. All either governors or all staunch supporters of the Union during the Civil War. Union military men honored during that period. And again, remember, this is the state. William Beadle. Who? South Dakota thought he was worth honor. He did. Lew Wallace from Indiana. Everyone knows Lew Wallace. Mainly because you've all read Ben-Hur or saw the movie. Lew Wallace was a fairly good general. He made some mistakes. George Shoup. Anybody? No? Idaho? And George Glick of Kansas. All Union soldiers, all honored by their states. In the 20th century, these three Indian, Native Americans have been honored. Chief Washakie, they all lived during the Civil War period. And as you know, during the Civil War, it was a very difficult time for the Indians. Many of them took one side or the other, hoping it would help to save them. It didn't work. Chief Washakie of Wyoming, Sarah Winnemucca of Nevada, and Chief Standing Bear of Nebraska, 2019. And these are lovely people. They're pieces of art, too. Some of them are really well done.
Are they still there?
Yeah. These are the years they were put in. So these are very recent.
Yeah, 2019, 2020.
What are those statues made of?
The new ones are bronze. The old ones were marble. There's one of the problems with the old one. They put them in statue. The floor was about to break because some of them weigh thousands of pounds. The new ones weigh far, far less. They're hollow. But there's 38 in the old building, where the house was, and the rest are spread out throughout the Capitol. And here's some others that were honored. Sam Houston. Sam Houston is an interesting case. Sam Houston, one of the founders of Texas. Sam Houston was governor of Texas when the Civil War broke out. Sam Houston was anti-secession. Sam Houston was removed from office. Sam Houston became a private citizen, and he died in 1863. And I have Frederick Douglass here, 2003, but in fact, 2013. But in fact, the District of Columbia is not part of Statuary Hall because they are a state. They're trying to get the right to bid, but they don't have it yet. Okay, 21st century, Sesquicentennial of the Civil War, the quest for racial justice, new debate. In the last 25 years, the debate about who should be memorialized in the U.S. Capitol has intensified. In the last 5 years, that intensity has been incredibly, mainly because of events in Virginia, Charlottesville, Richmond. Federal law was amended in the year 2000, and this is interesting. I'm writing a new version of this book, a scholarly version, with a lot more detail about it. And we could not, law was changed, and it was a sentence in the legislative appropriation for 2001, saying states can, if they wish, change their statutes. And it took us months to figure out. Nobody knew who did this. It turns out it was a congressman named Todd Tiahrt, Tiarht, who wanted to make sure that this fellow, Dwight David Eisenhower, would be honored. So he was on the Legislative Appropriations Committee. He put the clause in there, and I'm going to have a lengthy meeting with him next month to go over his thoughts about why he did it, etc. But it took us months to find out, because he obviously didn't publicize it. It just happened. Anyway, so he replaced. So the very first Civil War officer to be replaced was George Glick of Kansas, who was a Union officer, replaced by Eisenhower in 2003. In 2009, Alabama replaced Jabez Curry with Helen Keller. Now, those of you who have, anybody been to Tuscumbia, Alabama, her home? The artist chose this. I find it very compelling. This is the moment in the backyard of the family house at the water pump, where Helen Keller, again, we could not speak, could not hear, was essentially walled off in the world, through her teacher, said, water. The moment when essentially she came back to life, to an incredible life, the things that she did. But it's encapsulated by that statue at that moment, which I found really fascinating. Again, the state can do whatever it wants, so it did it this way. 2018, poor William Allen finally got replaced by a fellow named Thomas Edison from Ohio. 2023, the other copperhead, Julius Morton, was replaced by Willa Cather, the writer. A lot more women, you may have noticed, coming into Statuary Hall. The last 5 years have been an extremely active time towards the removal of Confederate statues nationwide. Here, there, and everywhere. You live here, it's in your neighborhood, around the corner. And Richmond's Monument Avenue. These were the main statues there. Robert E. Lee, Jackson, Stewart, and the others, all gone. All gone. There's only one left, Arthur Ashe. Arthur Ashe's statue is still there. All the others are gone. They're just weed-covered empty spaces in the middle of traffic circles. Closer to Washington, Arlington Cemetery. I made this slide, I just amended it yesterday. 2023, Arlington Cemetery was a vote to remove this statue and remove all Confederate graves in Arlington Cemetery. As you may know the story, Arlington Cemetery was created by Montgomery Meigs, who was a leading general of the Civil War. His son was the highest-ranking West Point cadet. He died in the Civil War. Looking out the back window of the White House and said, "We need a place to bury the Union dead. Let's bury them in Mrs. Lee's Rose Garden, Arlington Hall, across the river." Thus was created Arlington for Union dead. Over the years, it was broken, changed and changed and changed. 2014, the Confederate Memorial was emplaced. 2023, it was removed. And within the last couple of weeks, there was an announcement it's going to be put back.
That was that was to bring people together after the Civil War. It wasn't just a Confederate monument.
It was a
reconciliation.
Confederate
It was a
monument.
reconciliation monument. Now it'll cost 10.
Confederate monument sculpted by Moses Ezekiel, a Confederate soldier, a very esteemed, and it was there to honor the Confederacy, the Confederate dead. That's what they said. I'm not making it up. This is what they said.
It's a reconciliation.
You see, I stir people up.
Bring people together, and it'll cost $10 million and take 2 years to
Put it back.
another one back.
You
We'll put
and
that
I
one
are
back.
paying for that.
Sure, that one's already been destroyed. They'll put another one back.
That's part of the debate, which is why people like me keep writing books about the Civil War. It's not over. Yeah, absolutely. The same thing. You remember there was a commission to change the names of these forts. 9 forts named for Confederates. They were all named for different people. Now they're being renamed for people of the same name but somebody else. All in the last 6 months.
Aren't they supposed to go back to their original names?
Yes.
I thought they were.
So Fort Bragg is going back to be Fort Bragg, but it's not Braxton Bragg, it's after somebody else. All of them are Medal of Honor winners. All of them are great soldiers, but the choice is being made. I mean, this is all part of the process here. I remember I was driving down the other day towards Richmond, I saw Fort Mary Walker. Didn't last very long. Okay. The most dramatic event took place at 3 a.m. on December 21st, 2020. When Robert E. Lee, his statue was removed. And it's going to be replaced by a statue of Barbara Johns.
Who is she?
Barbara Johns was a high school student in Culpeper, just up the road here, who led many of the protests against school segregation, which led to the Brown versus Board of Education decision to reverse separate but equal. She then became a private citizen. This is her one and only public act. But she is going to be honored. Virginia chose, and the statue is being prepared. That's what it will look like. Has not been put up yet. Yes.
You just said a moment ago that Virginia chose her over Robert E. Lee.
The state of Virginia had a commission. The commission decides what to do about its states.
Okay.
And what about statutes? I'm sorry.
That's where my question was leading. I mean, who were these people who?
It's a commission appointed by the governor and the legislature. And
Governor Youngkin?
no, it was in 2020, 2019,
2020.
Governor Northam.
Okay, yeah.
Is it always a commission in every state? Or
Each state has full autonomy. It's usually done that way. You get a group of people together, yes.
It's the prevailing winds usually that make these choices, certainly in recent years. It's not, I mean, a moment ago, not to be, argumentative about it, but.
Why not?
It's,
Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, we have a very polite community right here. You said a little while ago that I knew I would stir somebody. This whole issue is electric. This whole issue of replacing statues, and
That's
a
what
lot
it
of it, a lot of the decision is not made by the people, like you said. You said Virginia chose it. It's made by the prevailing winds of the politicians at the time, not by the people. I mean, there's a lot of controversy right here replacing somebody like Robert E. Lee, who is a very, very unique person. And I was born in a northern state. I grew up in a northern state. I've given seminars on Abraham Lincoln. But Robert E. Lee is a very extraordinary person.
Absolutely. But again, just as the state of Mississippi chose Jefferson Davis,
Yes, yes, yes.
there is some discussion in Mississippi about replacing him, but it's only discussion.
Yeah.
So again, are there prevailing winds over time? Sure, absolutely.
Right.
Again, the legislation was in 2017 of the 100 statutes have been changed since 2000 because of that legislation. Will more be changed? Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, and I can
Yes.
see the reason and justification for changing a lot of them. But if I just might make a point, is it if it's okay with you, take a Less than a minute,
Maybe,
or should I hold on?
well, I don't know.
Yeah, let's move on and leave that to Q&A.
There will be lots of questions. Okay, yeah.
Where did the Statue of Poverty League go?
I went to a museum in Richmond, and now I heard something about several of those statues, including this one from Monument Avenue, are being sent to Los Angeles. There's going to be a display about the lost cause for a year, but I don't know the details. Okay, this is a video about the removal. Hope we have the sound. Well, actually, it's captioned, so. And that's Barbara Johns. As you can tell, this was during COVID, so everyone's wearing a mask. Okay? Next change, 2022. Florida replaced Edmund Kirby Smith with Mary Bethune, a black female educator. And we have a small video about that too, hopefully.
It was an historic day here in Washington. A statue of educator and civil rights leader Mary Bethune was unveiled at the U.S. Capitol, an honor more than a century in the making. Here's CBS's Nicole Killian.
The guest of honor attempts to express her gratitude.
Standing tall as she did in life, and now in marble used by Michelangelo, a statue of Mary Bethune took its place in the U.S. Capitol.
Mary Bethune truly did her part to advance the cause of forming a more perfect union.
Holding a black rose representing equality, the Florida native replaces a Confederate statue in Statuary Hall, becoming the first African American to represent a state in more than 150 years.
Why do you feel that it's taken so long to get to this point?
Well, because there's so much racism in the United States still. Nilda Comis designed the statue using Bethune's life story for inspiration. Born to parents who were formerly enslaved, she established a school for black girls that became Bethune-Cookman University, founded the National Council of Negro Women, and advised several U.S. presidents.
She had a true belief that she was equal to everyone else.
Breaking another barrier in the halls of Congress. Nicole Killian, CBS News, the Capitol.
Okay. All right. 2024, last year, North Carolina decided to replace Charles Aycock with a fellow named Billy Graham. Billy Graham, I think we know who he is. And then last year, also, Arkansas replaced both of their people with two interesting people. In this next video, I'm going to tell you all about them, hopefully.
Ex-Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson says the state has exceeded its fundraising goal of private donations to replace statues representing Arkansas in our nation's capital. Governor says it's on to the public phase of the fundraising campaign now. 5 News reporter Veronica Ortega has that story.
Sometime soon, the statues of music legend Johnny Cash and civil rights icon Daisy Gatson Bates will be put in a place of honor in National Statuary Hall in Washington, D.C.
In the last 100 years, Arkansas has changed as a state. But the changes that we have seen as a state are not reflected in our nation's capital.
Bates and Cash are replacing the statues of former Governor James Clark and Uriah Rose, a 19th century attorney.
We settled on Daisy Bates, Johnny Cash, and I think that now when kids go to Arkansas, or go to the Capitol, they're going to see some people that they know and to be proud of. So I think it's exciting.
It's unclear what will happen to the statues of Clark and Rose, but they will likely be returned to Arkansas and preserved.
History cannot be sanitized. It is what it is, and we need to preserve it so that it does not happen again.
Millions of people visit Statuary Hall every year. Cash's statue will be placed in the visitor center, his family writing this statement.
This is a son of Arkansas who traveled the world many times over, but never loved a spot on earth as much as the one he represents in this magnificent place.
While Bates' statue will reside across from another civil rights icon, Rosa Parks.
Will stand as a testament throughout time to the belief that access to education is the key to success.
The news comes one day after what would have been her 106th birthday. Covering news where you live, Veronica Ortega, 5 News.
Renderings of those.
Okay, so James Paul Clark replaced by Daisy Bates, who's a civil rights activist and newspaper editor, and Uriah Rose with Johnny Cash. Now, on the 21st century, Union political leaders have been replaced also. California replaced Governor Thomas King with Ronald Reagan. 2011, Michigan replaced Zach Chandler with Gerald Ford. 2014, Iowa replaced James Harlan with Norman Borlaug. And 2022, Kansas replaced John Ingalls with Amelia Earhart. So Kansas has changed. Kansas and Arkansas changed both of their statutes in the last 20 years. So Kansas now has Eisenhower and Amelia Earhart. Today, the debate continues, obviously. It's a controversial subject. And one of the reasons why I wrote this book in the first place, but why we're doing a second version, is because our thesis is the following. And this is not a thesis of opinion, this is a thesis of fact. The United States is the only nation in world history ever in which people declared at their time to be enemies of the state, to be traitors of the state, are in positions of honor in the capital, A-L, and the capital, O-L. This is it. This is the only instance in world history. There are obviously thousands of memorials and statues everywhere. These are different. Anyway. So these are the people who remain. Jefferson Davis, Alexander Stephens, Joe Wheeler, Edward White, James George, Zebulon Vance, Wade Hampton, John Kenna, again, who's sort of a Confederate, and Crawford Long. I think I've stirred some discussion, some debate here, because it is a controversial subject, obviously. And it is one that's going to lead to an interesting book, but the discussion goes on. So thank you very much. I hope we have some questions. And I have no doubt that we will. Yes, sir. Now,
just
a small one first.
I've read that Jefferson Davis's desk remains in the Secretary of Defense's office.
Haven't got a clue. Does anyone know? I don't know.
Couldn't hear the question.
Is Jefferson Davis's desk still in the office of the Secretary of Defense? I don't know. Does anyone know?
Must be a beautiful desk.
There are many. This is one of the many thousand questions. The answer is I don't know.
I think they would become
Maybe. Yes, sir. Okay.
Let me know that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I really want to pursue it, but I do want to say that you gave a very excellent presentation. You did what a historian is supposed to do. I taught history for
Thank you.
44 years. You did what a historian's supposed to do. You remained as neutral as possible on a very, very controversial situation. Yes, you did that. I'm sort of conflicted on a few things that you said.
And you are not alone, trust me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can see some of these statues, the necessity to put them someplace else and not at Statuary Hall. But then I can see some other ones. I mean, why were certain people replaced by other people who may become controversial, or who probably will become controversial within 100
years from now?
Yeah. Helen Keller, for example, I mean, incredible person, absolutely incredible person. And in my classrooms, I would often say that Anne Sullivan is the greatest teacher who ever lived, because as a teacher, you communicate with people who mostly can see and hear. Okay? Yeah. If they can't hear, they can see. Okay? If they can't see, they can hear. So you can communicate. Yeah. Helen Keller could neither see nor hear. Blocked. Yeah, she could neither see. So how do you communicate? Anne Sullivan was able to do that, so she has to be the greatest teacher. But in later life, Keller went to live with Anne Sullivan and her husband, and they had communist sympathies. I'm not faulting Anne Sullivan for that, because it was her husband that basically had it. So that's at least a point of discussion or controversy there.
Oh yeah.
You see, which will possibly come up at a later generation, because it's not all that well known by the general public, but it's there. The record is there. Sure. It shows it.
Yeah. Facts are hard to deal with.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that there was a law that allowed the states to change.
Legislative appropriation of 2000 for 2001, Congressman Ty Arch of Kansas.
Before that time, states were not allowed to change.
That's right.
So once they placed them there, whenever, that statute had to stay there.
Exactly.
So since that law has been in place, that's what...
17 of the 100 have changed.
Okay.
Which is why this is the 4th edition of this book. Because it changes so many times in the last 5 years. Again, the George Floyd episode, the new focus on taking down a monument, it's, to say the least, the controversy has hit several fans at once. Yeah.
Was that part of the emphasis to get that bill passed? To get some of those statues
that
out?
bill was passed, as I understand it. Again, I'm going to be interviewing former Congressman Ty, because he wanted to get Eisenhower.
Okay.
That was his focus. His focus was Eisenhower. And get rid of George Washington Glick. Okay.
Yeah. And then everything just went through.
And he opened the door.
Yeah.
And again, I've been in touch with the woman who was the curator of the architect of the Capitol. She didn't know who had done it. She said it just kind of happened. And so it took a lot of investigating to find out, because it was kind of done in the middle, as much in the Congress. Again, I was in the State Department, we have an exchange program where you can work on Capitol Hill called a Congressional Fellow. So I was a Foreign Affairs Advisor for a fellow named Dick Cheney in the House, and Senator Frank Murkowski of Alaska. And more than once, I'd come home from work to my wife and said, "You don't believe what happened today." And nobody knows how it happened, but legislation got in and got in there. This happened and that happened. A lot of mysterious things happened in Congress. Those of you are astonished to hear this, I know.
Are you kidding?
I'm startled, everyone. But I was there, and I did a couple of them myself. So I got things into bills, which put that in there, please. Okay, the senator would like to have this. Okay. I don't know how that's off topic too. But anyway, yes, ma'am.
The Richmond statues that are on display in California for a year.
That's all just been announced. It's going to be over the next few weeks, I gather.
Yeah. What are they going to do with them later? I heard that some of them might be melted down, or might be given to black groups to do whatever they want to, melt them down and make figures of their own.
You're going to get my standard answer. I don't know. Because I don't. I know something to investigate. I don't know. Wish I did. But I think a lot of people are making it up as they go along. Yes. And they don't know either.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Civil War
that.
Museum in Richmond.
Maybe.
Los Angeles.
The American Civil War Museum in Richmond is an excellent museum.
Yes.
It used to be the Museum of the Confederacy. It is now the American Civil War Museum. Tredegar Iron Works. It's an excellent, excellent museum. If you haven't been there, go.
Eisenhower had a picture of Robert E. Lee in his office.
So did George Marshall
Good Lord.
in his
You know
house.
why?
So did George Marshall. Still does.
Look it up.
You don't have to look it up. It's a true. It's
About
fact.
history.
Facts are hard to deal with.
One more question, please.
We can't rewrite it.
Yes, sir.
I was wondering, at the end of the Civil War, because the South couldn't secede from the North, secession was viewed as illegal, you couldn't do it. I wonder if there was any movement by anybody after the Civil War of saying that West Virginia seceded from Virginia and it should be reunified under the same logic.
Good
It's a very, well, shorthand is they seceded from secession. The longhand is there were several lawyers who, believe it or not, played fast and loose with the law. Any lawyers here? I'm sorry if I'm offending you. They said that Francis Pierpont and his group in Wheeling were the government of Virginia. They moved them to Alexandria because that was under Union control. Said they are the government of Virginia, and only the government of Virginia can allow part of the state to secede, to separate itself. Pierpont and his people in Alexandria gave permission to themselves to create West Virginia. So that's a very long story, but that's an encapsulation. So it's not seceding from secession. That's a legal basis. Someday someone will take it to the Supreme Court, and there will be lots of debate on that one. Yeah. Eric Wittenberg, who just died recently, a great historian, wrote a book which is entitled Seceding from Secession about it, but that's just shorthand. It isn't exactly what happened. It was a legal basis saying that these people are the government. Not those folks in Richmond, they don't count. They're rebels. These guys in Alexandria, they're the real government. And poor Pierpont, he wanted to go back and be the first governor of West Virginia. No, Lincoln said, you've got to stay here in Alexandria. So he was the governor of the restored state of Virginia. But he's in Statuary Hall. Strange things happen.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Before you go, please remember to visit our website often, civilwarstudygroup.org. We make every attempt on a regular basis to provide informative content. Thank you for visiting, and God bless.